Coach, I got two for you. The first one, how did things go from a communication standpoint between you and Vic and then you and your offense for the first game?
I thought it was good. I thought we were able to get the plays in. We had one where the headset went out a little bit. Actually, Drew called it. He always goes in with a plan based on what personnel we have in the game. If for some reason we have an issue, he can call it, and he did a good job with that. And then I thought the coach communication was very good.
And then
Go ahead, Brandon.
because you were with the Giants and so many of your former players played against the Steelers, does that help your approach because you know their personality? You know, it's Jason Garrett calling plays and it's a different deal because it was your old team that played him in week one to get some ideas?
Well, obviously, I'm very familiar with the team. Although there's quite a few new players there. Probably more than half the team is new. So you know, from a player standpoint, you know, some of them I'm familiar with. Obviously, with Daniel Jones and Saquon, and you know some of the guys up front, and some of our skill players. But you know, I think just watching them play, you know, I think it's more important to watch how the Steelers play. You know, and there was some scheme that was familiar to me based on, you know, what the Giants are doing. So, you know, I guess it was good to see an opponent that I'm familiar with.
Next up, Arnie Stapleton.
Vic acknowledged on Tuesday that he missed a timeout there at the end of the game. And I'm wondering if you were in his ear telling him to get a timeout, or is there somebody else on your staff that's designated to kind of communicate with him in those end-of-game situations like that?
Yeah, no, we all communicate. It's pretty seamless, you know, and I think he addressed it, so I'll just leave it at that.
Go ahead, Nick Kosmider.
Yeah, Pat, what was your impression of Lloyd Cushenberry in his first game as a starter?
I thought he did a good job. You know, I think the thing that concerns you for a rookie start in his first game is if it's too big for him, and it certainly wasn't. I thought he handled himself extremely well. He blocked well for the first time out, and then certainly as a center, you need him to direct, and he directed things well. We didn't really have any screw-ups in terms of communication, you know, in there. Obviously, when you're playing against a really good front, there's times every once in a while you get beat physically. That happens to every player in every game. But I think for the first time out, it was a solid, really good performance.
Next up, Jeff Legwold.
Pat, through the years, when you've seen a defense kind of have a day against the run, like the Steelers did last week, how do you sort of balance looking at what they did and not being deterred from running yourself in that way?
Well, certainly they made an effort to stop the run. I think that's a matter of record. They were going to try to take Saquon away and then see what the rest of the game presented. And they did a very good job of that. So, you know, we look at what they did tactically, and, you know, we'll try to adjust and do the things that we feel are necessary to make yards running the ball. You know, I think we practice all the plays that we run in the games, and we practice ones that we think are going to work, whether it's a run or a pass, and then you go out on Sunday and you try to execute them.
Next up, Mike Kliss.
Coach, let's go back over that 1st and goal from the 2 where you didn't get it in. You had 2 where you tried to pound it in there and 2 where you tried to trick them a little bit. Just what went wrong and any, you know, is that something where you dissected every play with the players and where the breakdowns were and anything you would do different?
Well, first of all, those are all plays that we practiced. All right. And then second of all, the first one we tried to run in. The second one was a pass out of a big formation grouping where we had a little bit of pressure. We had 2 guys open and we missed them. And then the last one was a play that, you know, we felt like had a chance. We just didn't quite execute it as well. But as far as dissecting plays, they're all designed to work. And when they don't, you go back and you look at what happened and you're critical about it, and then you move on. And I think that's the approach on everything. You know, we called a lot of plays the other night that worked, and then we did call a few that didn't. And so what we got to be able to do, though, is that's a situation there that puts us with 21 points on the board, and that's very important in the outcome of that game.
There's time for a few more. Next time, Mark Kisla.
Yeah, we all want points, nobody more than you do. I mean, you want
Yeah,
points.
right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So here's a challenge that I want you to address. And it happens to every offense from time to time. You come out in that third quarter, 2 3-and-outs, and they have 2 long drives. You
Right.
came back to respond to that with a touchdown drive of your own, if I remember correctly. But
Right.
but in that situation where you go a quarter and you really haven't played much offense, what's the challenge to getting your rhythm back as an offense? And maybe having enough patience to say you don't have to get all the point, get your opportunity in one big play.
Yeah, well, I think what you try to do is do what we did, put a drive together and score. I mean, that's restating the obvious. And what you don't want to do is you never want a 3-and-out, because then what happens is everything gets twisted. And we all understand that. We had 2 very makeable, and in my opinion, 3 very makeable third downs that we didn't execute, where we had what we were looking for, didn't execute it for whatever reason. And, if those things happen in retrospect, then we're better than 50% on third down. You get, after that, at least 3 more plays. So you get the ball to all the players that everybody thinks should have touched the ball. And so when you don't execute on third down, and then it puts pressure on the defense where they got to go out and do what they do. So it becomes magnified. To answer your question, how you get it started is do what we did. We put together a drive that we executed well, and we got back on the stick and got it in the end zone.
Last 2, Troy, then Ryan.
Coach Shurmur, thanks for the time. 2-part, what did you learn from Drew in calling plays for him and, in kind of a live situation finally? And what have you seen from Jerry Jeudy that makes you think he will bounce back from the tough night with the 2 drops?
Yeah, well, I thought Drew handled the first game well, without really a dress rehearsal. The communication was good. I've said this in the past, but I think he sees things pretty well. So when something happens on the field, the first thing you do when you talk to a quarterback is you say, what did you see, good or bad? And that's what you're talking about on the sideline. And he's able to kind of, when we're looking at the pictures, kind of tell me what he saw, and he's very accurate as to what actually did happen. So that's good. He's also willing to say, you know what, I screwed that up. I should have hung on this guy. So then now you can make those corrections. And so that's kind of the in-between series stuff, and then you're able to talk about moving forward. This is what I'm thinking about next. And then, in the headset, certainly he was good with the plays. And then the second part was Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry did some good things in that game. Unfortunately, dropping the ball. We never want the ball on the ground. You never want to fumble it, right? And although we didn't have any penalties, we had a couple exchange problems that are, we can't have. We had a fumble, and then we had a couple of drops. And those are things that in a tight game can be killers, especially when you don't execute, or a drop is a reason why you don't execute a third down, or so on and so forth. So, but I'm confident because I've seen him do too many good things, and he's a young player, and I think whatever happened in that game, all the young players are going to learn from.
Last one, Ryan.
Hey, Pat, what kind of camp did Garrett Bolles have, and did he carry it over pretty well into week 1?
I think he had a good camp. Again, I'm watching Garrett Bolles with fresh eyes, and, he competed hard in camp. I think he got himself ready to play. I think he went out and battled really well against some pretty good edge rushers the other night. And, I think like everybody, everybody has bad plays, and I think, he'll try to limit the ones he had and not make the same mistakes. But I was pleased with what happened in camp, and we look forward to him, being a really good player moving forward.